a brand new day. And the standard we're going for today is our very first public speaking school. Children, parents, we have a great school planned for today. These children here were handpicked to deliver these parts today for our very first public speaking school. Charlie, can you do a pan on the audience that we have here? Look at these parents who showed up to see their babies. Can we give them a round of applause? I am very excited. What I'm going to do before we get started is I'm going to tell you all what we're in store for here. So, our public speaking school today will be it will be focused on America at the turn of the 20th century, a unit that we just finished last week. And we are going to be talking about immigration today, all of our assignments. Our public talk, How is America a Nation of Immigrants, will be given by Mr. Aaron Schubert. Can we give him a round of applause? Then our return visit will be conducted by Miss Jofi Chan and Mr. Jito Fondue. And we will end our public speaking school with the summary of the Watch History article entitled Immigration, coming from Unit 1, and our reader will be Mr. Forrest Dickerson. I know we are all ready to go ahead and get started. This is a beautiful occasion. One thing I will let you know before we get started, and your parents will agree with me on this, public speaking school is the absolute best thing that I can teach you. It is even better than History Mania, even though we all love History Mania. Public speaking school, what you all will do when you all have assignments up here, you will carry it for the rest of your lives. When you have job interviews in the future, you're gonna have to know how to speak publicly. You're gonna have to know how to represent yourself. And this is a key skill that you will need for the rest of your life. So, with that, public speaking school can and will lead you to beautiful places, even maybe a place like our beautiful picture right here where everybody's just so happy and together and there's animals and all that good stuff. But there's one thing I do know. These students right here are ready to go ahead and get this over with. They've been working hard for some weeks, so we're not going to delay any further. I would like to introduce our first student speaker, Mr. Aaron Schubert, as he delivers the public talk entitled, How is America a Nation of Immigrants? Mr. Aaron Schubert.
To immigrants, America was a land of opportunity. It attracted them because it was, according to Social Studies book page 54, democratic, had a good climate, and expanding industries. Other reasons people immigrated to the United States were that it protected the rights of citizens, had a stable government, and had many job opportunities. These factors were all very important to immigrants because most of them were escaping things like famine, bad economy, and cruel and unfair governments. In the early 1800s, most immigrants came from Northern and Western European countries. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, most immigrants came from Southern and Western Europe. We will now read paragraphs 1 to 3 on page 54. Where immigrants came from. Before 1890, most immigrants came from Northern and Western European countries such as Great Britain, Ireland, Scotland, Germany, Norway, and Sweden. From 1890 to 1920, the number of immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe increased dramatically. These immigrants came from countries such as Italy, Greece, Poland, Austria, Hungary, Turkey, and Russia. Additionally, a significant spike in immigration occurred from Asia from 1910 through 1915. The trip across the Atlantic took about 12 days. Most immigrants traveled in steerage, the cheapest area per ship. Here, hundreds of people were often packed into dark and smelly quarters. Families usually traveled together, although young men frequently traveled over first to find work. Ellis Island and Angel Island were similar and different in many ways. They were similar because both islands were large immigration stations. People who passed through either one were questioned by officials, and immigrants who passed through them settled near where they entered the country. They were different because at Ellis Island, most people were checked in a few hours, while at Angel Island, it could take months for people to get examined. Another way that they were different was that at Ellis Island, mainly European immigrants passed through, and at Asian islands, the immigrants who passed through were mainly Asian. According to page 56 in the Social Studies book, 57 in the Social Studies book, most immigrants settled in states near the immigration station that they used to get into the country. They settled in these states because they needed to find work quickly, since most immigrants did not have very much money. Other immigrants took advantage of the cheap or sometimes even free land out west. Many of these immigrants that settled on farms are primarily from Scandinavia and Sweden, since they had lived on farms in their home countries. Since, according to American Heritage, America is the only country that does not have a specific nationality, meaning that most people, except for a few Native Americans, can trace their ancestors to European or Asian countries. Some other ways that America is a nation of immigrants are that America has a large variety of cultures. According to page 57 in the Social Studies book, a Chinatown, or Little Italy, can be found in many cities across the United States. These kind of communities attracted other immigrants because they made it easier for them to adjust to their new way of life.
Mr. Schubert, I would really like to thank you for that public talk. Just some things that I noticed while you were up here giving your talk. Your poise, the way you carried yourself, the way you made audience contact. You were not tied to your notes. You made an effort to look up, acknowledge someone in the audience, look at them, and continue to speak. For that to be your very first public talk that you've ever given, and to be able to do something like that, that is fascinating. That is, I mean, when we have assemblies, when we've had students get up and give public talks in the past, it's always maybe their third time that they get an opportunity where they're able to display some skill like that, but you were able to do it on your very first one. Not only does that show that you took it seriously, it shows that you took it seriously because of the amount of preparation that you had to undertake in order to do something like that. And I don't know if you noticed, but there was one person in the audience that was especially proud. You see her right there? That's Mama. Very, very happy to see her baby get up and give a part like that. And a couple of things I want to point out about your talk that I really love. The amount of extra research and extra information, especially where you brought out how America is a nation of immigrants, because when you look at it, there is no distinct personality or culture or ethnic group that only comes from America. This truly is a nation of immigrants. That's not something that you'll just find in your social studies book. That's something that you had to do your own research in order to figure out. So if you all are looking forward to giving a public talk, or you want to know exactly how to do it, Aaron just showed us exactly how to do a perfect public talk. So can we give him another round of applause? So now it's time for us to see a little bit of acting, but also a very important part, because it's realistic in the sense that we all will have to do this, or have already had to do this at some point in time, being at school, and that is our return visit part, which focuses on how to properly help a classmate to find something, and that will be given by Miss Jofi Chan and Mr. Jito Fondue, and their return visit will be focused around the question, what was life like for immigrants? So let's focus in on the not the public talk, the return visit. You guys can go in the middle right here.
Hey Jofi, what was life for immigrants?
Well, Evan, on page 58 of the social studies book, it says that life was difficult for immigrants because housing in big cities were crowded and unsanitary. Most jobs paid very low wages and working conditions were dangerous. As big U.S. cities grew, different cultural groups lived closer to one another. Clashes sometimes arose. Immigrant groups found themselves discriminated against people who had lived in the United States longer.
Well, Jofi, do you know who came to America?
Well, a few of the immigrant groups who suffered the most from discrimination were the Chinese, Irish, Italians, and Polish. Jews who came from various nations also faced problems like others from discrimination during this period. Many parts of the world decided to immigrate to the United States from the 1850s to the early 1900s. Thousands of immigrants arrived in the United States and lived in New York. The first immigrants came from Ireland, Germany, then Italy, Eastern Europe, and China came to America.
Why did Americans choose to come to America?
All right. So I want to thank Jofi and Jito. I thought that was a very well done return visit, and some things that I want to point out about that was that when they started the conversation with each other, it was a very realistic conversation that I know you all have every day when you see your friends. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. So I got a question for you. And then they got into the presentation. And if you notice, they made it even more realistic because Jito asked a follow-up question that was not in the script, was not something I gave to them, when he asked, well, who all came over? Because his first question focused on what life was like for immigrants, and when Jofi shared that information with him, Jofi shared how life was not all that great when people first started immigrating to America. So Jito then asked that follow-up, well, who all came, after hearing what life was like? And then that's when she went into more detail identifying the groups of people who were coming to America at the turn of the 20th century. This part is so important, and I'm so appreciative of how they did it, because another great thing that Jofi did was that she pointed to the book page where you could find the definite answer. Now, we know when we ask people for help in class, it's great to just hear them give their opinion, but if they show the answer to you exactly where it is in the book, then they've really given you that help. I really love how they brought out their information, how it wasn't just a one-word answer, You know, Jofi, how was life like for immigrants? Bad. That wasn't it. She gave detail. And so when we think about the Georgia Milestone 2 coming up, you could have that same question and you could write bad, but your score on the milestone is going to be bad if you do that. So the valuable thing about this part and the great way of how they carry it out helps everyone in the room, because not only does it help you and your fellow classmates, it also helps the parents in the room and the teachers. Because the parents know, okay, well, I can go straight to this page in the book, or I can go straight to this part on the website, on the click book that you all get. So the return visit is very important, and I am so happy about the 2 people who I chose to conduct the very first one. And I don't know if it's going to be the last time y'all do a return visit, because you might get another one in May. Maybe. So now we've come to the last part of our public speaking school, and that is our Watch History article. And this is the part where we all are able to get involved and we're all able to share our comments. So I'm going to go over the directions as to how to do the Watch History article, and we will go ahead and get started. And before I go into those directions, I want to identify my reader for today. It will be Mr. Forrest Dickerson. Can we give him a round of applause? And please, all of you, please pull up the Watch History article, because I am excited to hear your comments. And I'm also excited to give a little compensation for the comments that I hear. So, our Watch History article today is focusing on immigration. It comes from Social Studies Unit 1, Volume 1. Here are the directions. Prepare a comment for each question using information from the paragraph, your notes, internet sources, and personal experience. And we want to get as many comments as possible, so please keep your comments to 30 seconds or less. So now we will go ahead and get started. Can we have the reading of paragraph number 1, Mr. Dickerson?
At the turn of the 20th century, many people from around the world emigrated to their home countries from their home countries to the U.S. One of the biggest reasons so many millions left their home was to try to live a better life in America. Other reasons people immigrated was to flee religious persecution, escape cruel and unfair governments, and escape hunger. These were some of the reasons people came to America.
Thank you for your reading, Mr. Dickerson. So, a question for paragraph 1, and please speak loudly so that we can all hear you. Why did immigrants come to America? Okay, our first comment for public speaking school, Mrs. George.
One of the reasons they came to America, where they went, they had cruel and unfair governments. Another reason is because of crop failure, and they were also hoping for better lives and more job opportunities. Also, their countries were not fair, and they were not allowed to worship their God. They also sometimes immigrated because of low water, crop failure, and droughts.
Michelle, I could not hear that last little bit, but what I did hear was very good. Crop failure was mentioned. Any further comments on why did immigrants come to America? Okay, Miss Ambler.
Immigrants came to America because they wanted to escape cruel and unfair governments, escape hunger, and to flee religious persecution. Fleeing crop failure, land and job shortages, rising taxes, and famine. Many came to the U.S. because it was perceived as the land of economic opportunity. In the late 1800s, people in many parts of the world decided to leave their homes and immigrate to the United States. They decided to leave because of unfair laws.
Thank you, Ms. Ambler, for your comment. Anything further on why did immigrants come to America? Okay, Mr. Bradley.
Immigrants came to America to flee from stuff like crop failure and unfair governments. People came to escape from the bad life they live. If they suffer a bad life, they will probably move to America. They do it, just like I said, to escape.
Okay, all right. So highlighting how a lot of people had to escape. And what I enjoyed about all your comments was that we all identified different reasons as to why people immigrated to America. But that leads us to the natural question, okay, we're talking about why they came to America, but who was it who came to America and where did they come from? So we're going to have the reading of paragraph 2 to answer that question, Mr. Dickerson.
Most immigrants came from northern and western European countries. Many came from Great Britain, Scotland, Sweden, Ireland, Germany, and Norway, and other European countries. From 1890 to 1920, immigrants from other countries began arriving in America. People from Greece, Poland, Austria, Hungary, Turkey, and Russia came to U.S. from 1910 to 1915. Many Asian immigrants arrived in the U.S.
So, our question for paragraph 2, where did the immigrants come from? Okay, Miss Thurman.
Many immigrants came from northern and western European countries, including Great Britain, Scotland, Sweden, Ireland, Germany, and Norway, and other European countries. From 1980 to 1920, immigrants from other countries like Greece, Poland, Austria, Hungary, Turkey, Italy, and Russia came to America. From 1910 to 1915, many Asian immigrants also came to America.
All right. Anything further on where they came from? All right, Mr. Schubert.
In the mid-1800s, immigrants came from Great Britain, Scotland, Sweden, Ireland, Germany, Norway, and other northern and western European countries. In the late 1800s to early 1900s, a lot more people came from Greece, Poland, Austria, Hungary, Turkey, and Russia. In the very early 1900s, there was also a significant spike in immigration from Asian countries.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that, giving us time periods in which these things took place. Anything further on where these immigrants came from? Okay, Mr. Carrillo.
As recently as the 1950s, 2/3 of all immigrants to the United States came from Europe or Canada. The main countries of origin for immigrants today are Mexico and Philippines, China, Cuba, and India.
Oh my goodness gracious, some recent statistics on immigration. I really, really like that comment. So we see that this is something that seemingly has always been happening in America. I love how we covered at the turn of the 20th century, and then we covered what's happening today. Immigration is still occurring today in very, very high numbers. Very high numbers. So we're going to move on to an interesting topic. When these immigrants came from all over the world, what places were they going to? So let's have the reading of paragraph 3 to find that out.
When immigrants arrived, they would go to immigration stations before they could enter the U.S. The most famous immigration stations were Ellis Island and Angel Island. Ellis Island was in New York City.